Hi, this is Jim Cunningham, and we're going to talk about legal and estate issues for college-age kids. Some really, really important tips. And something to understand before we get started here is this is a disclaimer. I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff. Now, normally I say don't go out and do a bunch of stuff, but there's one exception here. I'm going to give you links, and these are in the notes if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're watching this live, we'll follow up with an email. I'm going to give you links to 3 documents, actually 4 documents. There's a kind of a bonus 4th document. I'm going to give you links to 3 documents, and we're going to go over how to fill these out. These are statutory forms that really have been kind of produced by the California legislature. These are things that you can fill out on your own. If you do need help with those, we certainly can help you one-on-one. Our fees would apply at that point. But if you're the kind of person who says, hey, I can do this on my own, go ahead and do it on your own. If you're the kind of person who says, no, I don't have headspace for this, just handle it. We can certainly handle that for you. It's really whatever you want to do. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is very important. We do these webinars once a week. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, once those are published on YouTube, which is typically a couple hours after we do it, then you'll be alerted on the content. So 2 important webinars coming up after this one. Important planning, tax planning when investing. So it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And then the next one right after that is the hot tax tips for 2022. We're starting to enter the tax planning season for many of our clients. So it's very important. I would go ahead, you can schedule those or reserve a webinar and watch this live through our website, but you can also subscribe to YouTube and get that sort of fed to you. We have offices in Northern California and Southern California. This is our team of lawyers. All we do is trust and estate matters, tax planning matters, and anything involved with multi-generational wealth also does involve real estate. So I am the CEO and partner at Cunningham Legal, over 25 years experience. We do help clients in other states, and I'm a certified specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law, as well as a real estate broker and securities and insurance license and a pilot. So these are very important different skill sets that come together. We help a lot of clients with, frankly, a lot of real estate because that's the source of a lot of wealth in California. So college age kids, what is going on? Typically, and this is college age, not necessarily going to college, but these are young adults, right? So these are kind of the kids 18 to 25, if you will. When you're 18, we all know this. This is not new. I put this in the Captain Obvious category. You're an adult at 18, right? Pretty much throughout the United States, you're an adult at 18. And you are fully responsible for all of your actions. You do not have the protection of the juvenile justice system and all these other sort of guardrails. But something very important to understand is the human brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is right here, is judgment. That does not fully develop until a person is 25. So there's this middle period of 7 years where, kids do stupid stuff, quite frankly, right? I mean, we've all kind of known, hey, that 19-year-old did something really nutty and not really something that a 25-year-old might do. So there is a little bit of cognitive brain development going on. But something that's really important to understand as a parent, and I'm a parent of 3 children in their 20s, unless you do something, and we're going to go through what that something is, you will not have access to your children's medical records, right? It's like me trying to access your kid's medical records. You have the same standing, right? The same ability to access as your kid's medical records as I do, unless they give you permission, and that's what we'll talk about. Also, you lose access to their financial decision-making. So access to financial information, financial decision-making, we're going to cover that. So we're going to go over what it means to turn 18 and why that's important. There's actually a guide that California produces, and it was last updated in 2020. It's the Turning 18 Guide, and we'll have a link for that. That's in the notes if you're watching this on YouTube, and that's also something we'll send you if you're watching this live. We'll send a follow-up email. We're going to cover the Uniform Statutory Form Power of Attorney. That gives financial authority, where your child gives you financial or decision-making authority over the child's finances, can access the records at the registrar's office. So if you're sending your kid off to college and you're paying the tuition and that kid isn't going to class, you can't call the registrar's office or can't call the teachers and say, hey, is little Johnny or Sally going to class, unless you have a power of attorney. So that is the idea here, is you're going to have access to those important decisions that your child's making that you may be paying for, right? That you don't have access to, which is kind of a hard thing. If you're sending your first kid to college, you're like, Jim, what are you talking about? You mean they won't talk to me? No, they won't. So that's just the way it is. The Advanced Healthcare Directive is for healthcare decision-making and HIPAA authorization. That's the medical privacy. Most people have heard of HIPAA. It's basically, you can't access your child's medical records unless you're given permission. And then we'll cover the California statutory will, which is the last will and testament. And we'll also give you those free links to these resources, or links to the free resources. So let's look at what happens when a kid turns 18. I'm going to go through this rapid fire. You can rewatch this, and we're going to put this up on YouTube. You can pause it if you're watching it recorded. So a lot of stuff happens when you're 18, and we're going to cover some of the most important ones. It's very important to understand, and this is something you may want your 18-year-old, a kid who's turning 18, to watch. Again, this is a pre-printed you can download it. It's a free PDF, and the State Bar produces that. State Bar of California. That's not an alcohol bar. That's the organization that licenses lawyers, right? The State Bar. So at the age of 18, a person is a legal adult. And something to understand, if you are turning 18, your decisions have far-reaching consequences, much further than when you were 17, right? And that might have been last week for some people. So it's really important to understand that once you're an adult, you are an adult. You can't say, well, I'm only 18. I did this stupid thing. It doesn't work that way. So, and it's another thing is parents are no longer legally responsible for their child's actions. So if a kid goes off the rails, the parent's not responsible. So that's also kind of, the door swings both ways on that. Now, this is important. At 18, an adult, technically still kind of a kidult, I guess you could call them. You can sign and you can bind yourself. You can buy things. You can incur debt. You can sign contracts. That's what we're talking about here. You have to follow through. A deal is a deal. You've heard that. That comes from law. A contract, you can't just opt out of a contract. You can't go buy a car and then the next day decide you don't want it, because there is no 3-day cooling off period in California. There's a 3-day cooling off period on a lot of things, but California has a statutory carve out. So this is really important. You have to read everything that you sign. If you're 18 or 19 or 20 or 21 or 22, you need to read everything and you need to understand it. And if you don't understand it, get help. Get help from your parents, get help from a lawyer, whatever it is. But you really need to understand this. And I think, a lot of people want to buy a car when they're a young adult, but just understand that, if that thing breaks down a week later, you can't take it back and say, here, take it. So you can buy and sell real estate. You can buy stocks. You can get married. You can file lawsuits and be sued. You can enlist in the military, right? So we got a picture here of some people taking the oath for the United States military. So a lot of things that these are binding contracts. It's different than when you were a child. The court system, you are no longer, as I mentioned, protected by the juvenile justice system. And those are some pretty significant guardrails. Once you're 18, you are treated as an adult, and this is regardless of the crime. And driving. So driving is one of those things. If you're a minor, you need parental consent to get your permit. If you're 18, it's not a 6-month permit period. It's a 2-week period. There is no more curfew. Now, it's something to understand is there's no state curfew, but it's typically cities and counties will have a curfew. And many of them are 10 a.m. to sunrise. And there are some exceptions, if you're with a parent or work or on an errand or something like that, that's, there's some exceptions there. But basically, if you're 18 hanging out with a 17-year-old at someone's house at 11:30 at night, you may be breaking local curfew laws. And so that's something to understand is you're going to be held responsible for that as an adult. Driving tickets, you're responsible for those. So once you're 18, you're responsible for those. You must have auto insurance in the state of California. It's a requirement. So if you buy a car and you say, I can't afford the insurance, you need to get the insurance. And not having insurance is a violation of California law. You are personally responsible for your accidents. Now, many times a parent will buy a car for a kid. Okay, here you graduated from high school, you're going to college, here's a car. Many times the parents are on title. So here's a little tip, here's a little hack. Put the kid on title and you as the parent be the lien holder. That way there's no negligent entrustment issue. So if the kid has a problem and gets in an accident, you potentially could be held liable because you're the owner of the vehicle. Well, if you're only a lien holder, meaning it's almost like, they can't sell the car without your signature, right? Because you don't want to just give them a car and they turn around 2 weeks later and sell it. You can be a lien holder. That way you have some say over transfer of title, but you're not liable. It's the bottom line. If you are under 21, and this is really important, do not drink. First of all, don't drink and drive ever, but it's much more significant. Drinking and driving is much more severe if you're under the age of 21. So this has happened to my son's a couple of his friends got DUIs when they were under 21. And I was surprised. Now, I'm not a criminal lawyer. I was surprised at the penalties that came with that. So they're pretty significant. It's going to result in the loss of your license if you're under 21. So that is a big hit. And it follows you for a really long period of time. So you end up with two separate records. You got your DUI record and your criminal record. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a criminal law attorney. That's why I was surprised. This stays on your record for 10 years. Think about that. You're 20 and you get a DUI. That's going to be on your record until you're 30. Good luck trying to get a job, because all employers do criminal background. Any job you want, they're going to do a criminal background check, and that will appear on your criminal background check. So it's a pretty significant penalty. Don't do it. Take an Uber, stay at home, don't drink, whatever it is. But really, if you're a parent and you want your kid to watch this, sometimes the kids listen to the parent. Don't listen to the parents, but they'll listen to somebody else. So if you're a kid watching this, if you're 18, just don't drink and drive. I mean, it has so many far-reaching, it's such a bad idea and has so many penalties. A lot of people are just frankly unaware of it. Moving. So renting an apartment typically requires signing a lease. If you don't pay your rent, you get evicted. You will get served a 3-day notice to pay. And then if you don't pay your rent, the landlord commences the eviction proceeding. And your landlord does have some duties. They're required to keep the premises in reasonable condition. So it's their warranties of habitability. There's anti-slumlord laws out there. You do have some rights as a tenant, but you're required to pay for damage. And so that's really important. So reasonable wear and tear, you're not dinged for. Damages, a hole in the wall, torn carpet, that sort of thing, really bad stains in carpet. Those are typical things where they're going to ding you. In the real world, though, they're going to always find something. A landlord will always try to find something and try and keep some of that security deposit. But you also need credit. So another tip is, if you're watching this and you may have kids who are 18 or younger or a little bit older, it might not be a bad idea to get a credit card with a very low balance or with a very low maximum to build your son or daughter's credit. So very important. Having fun. So this is a euphemism for making a lot of noise, right? Having fun. You can get a ticket from law enforcement for many, many things, and they can be issued for, playing music too loud, fighting and being rowdy, having parties. That's probably the biggest one. And crashing a party actually is, if you're 18 or over, you can get a ticket for trespass. So it's something, just think about this. As an adult, you have more responsibilities and you are more responsible for your own behavior. Hazing, and I pulled this. This is a pretty serious topic, and I was really worried about this when my kids went to college. I got a picture here from Animal House, but you need to understand that hazing is anything that's likely to cause physical injury or personal degradation is punishable by a $5,000 fine and jail time and potential civil damages. So this is something you really need to be careful with. And it's a generational thing. So if you engage in hazing when you went to college, if you're the parent, the times have changed. And I think we've seen all those stories where people have really been hurt by pretty severe hazing. Okay. So just understand that there are laws against their anti-hazing laws. And this, I'm talking about California. Possession of drugs other than cannabis is a felony charge. And this is, again, and there's a list of drugs here. Some obvious ones, LSD, heroin, cocaine, barbiturates. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. Steroids is one that a lot of people don't think about. They are illegal. Okay. And that is something that is criminal to possess without, proper medical supervision and prescription. So some prescription medications, some scheduled drugs, the Oxycontins and things like that. If you are, sharing those with friends, that's a crime. You can't, don't do that. So I know I'm getting into a little bit of issues here that you may not have expected when we were talking about durable powers of attorney and wills, but these are real world issues. And so just don't do it. Typically, the first offense is a referral to a drug treatment program, and then you can have a penalty of $50,000 and up to 5 years in prison. So pretty serious. And if you're under 21, you're looking at a suspension of your driver's license. Selective service is still just men, ages 18 to 25. They're either U.S. citizens or immigrants, and you're required to register for the selective service. And citizens, you must register within 30 days of reaching the age of 18. So it's something you're required to do. And immigrants must register within 30 days of arriving in the U.S. You must register with Selective Service to get federal and state financial aid. So they do check that. It's something to be mindful of. So if you're a boy or a man, you do need to register for Selective Service, or you're not going to get the financial aid. And there's certain job training. You can register online. It used to be you had to fill out a card and mail it in, and this whole mail thing. And I registered for Selective Service, and now you go to sss.gov, and it's a 5-year prison, up to 5 years in prison, and a $250,000 fine if you don't register for Selective Service. This is not the draft. This is just, in place of a draft is where it originated from, but it is not a draft. It's registering with the government. Firearms, and I'm talking California, you cannot be a prohibited person to possess a firearm. So if you, if you want to buy a gun, you can't in California until you're 21. So you just can't do that in California. Once you're 21, you can, if you provide proof of California state residency, which is not your driver's license. California state residency is typically going to be a utility bill or other type of proof that you're a California resident, and possess a handgun safety certificate, plus you successfully complete that, you can demonstrate that you can safely handle a firearm or be exempt. Exemptions are, if you're a cop, or if you're honorably discharged from the military or active military, or have a hunting license, right? If you're 18 and over and have a hunting license issued by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, then you're good to go. But there are a lot of rules connected with firearms. I'm not getting into the politics of it. I'm just letting you know, if you like to hunt or shoot, there are some rules on that that you need to, that are different than if you're a minor, right? And if you hunt, you do need a hunting license. So, and a hunting, a competency certificate for hunting safety. So we've got a girl here in a duck blind shooting ducks. So just understand that those are some different rules. So let's move on to the uniform statutory form power of attorney. So what we have here, and for those of you, if you have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. So the durable power of attorney is a document that gives authority where the child in this case, or the student in this case, or the college age person, gives authority to the parents to make decisions on that student's behalf. So we're going to tell a story here. We're going to go through these documents, and we're going to talk about Harold and Wanda Jones. So Harold is the husband and Wanda is the wife. Harold and Wanda Jones, they have a son, Samuel. Sam has been admitted to the University of California at Santa Cruz. That happens to be my alma mater. So I went there a long time ago, before there were grades. It was written evaluations. Now my understanding is they have grades. And Helen want to make sure that they can help Sam legally. They want to follow all the legal aspects of helping Sam if they need to. They also want to access his academic records. And I think this is when I talk to my friends and I talk to clients, that's the one thing they're like, I want to make sure Sam's going to class, right? Because sometimes people don't go to class. So let's look at the uniform statutory form power of attorney. Now, if you're looking at this on a small device, I apologize. Again, we do have a link for it, and I'm going to have to pull up my glasses so I can read this thing. So what we have here is we have, I'm going to highlight what I've filled in. Obviously, you're going to put your own name in. You're not going to put Sam Jones in here. So we've got Sam Jones, Sam Jones, who's the student. I appoint Harold Jones and Wanda Jones. And this is, if you live at 1234 Maple Street in LA, I'm not creeping on you. I just made that up. So, but that's an example of an address. So you definitely want to put in the name and the address. And that's really serves as sort of a proof of identification, if you will. And if you want to give all these powers, and I'll kind of discuss what these powers are, you don't have to check all the boxes. Okay. You just check this last box. Okay. So, so real property transactions, buying and selling real estate. I don't think someone in the early 20s is going to be buying and selling real estate. Tangible personal property transactions. Yeah. Stuff in storage. Yeah. That's probably one you're going to want to have. Basically, if you check N here as in Nancy, you're going to get all these powers. Stock and bond transactions might be important if you have some assets that are held in the student's name to pay for tuition. Commodity and option transactions, something else. Banking, super important. If you want to have access to banking. Now, in the real world, what do people do? They have kind of a household account. I know we bank at Wells Fargo Bank personally, and we've got several accounts. And if our kids need money, when they needed money in school, when they were in school, we would just move that to different accounts. That's a way you can, it's a little bit of a hack. So if that's all part of those household accounts, you can kind of see what the kid's spending is. And you can do that online now. So it's very convenient. Business operating transactions, probably not going to affect a kid in school. Insurance and annuity transactions. Insurance transactions kind of important. You know, if you have, I mentioned auto insurance, if you need to interact with the auto insurance carrier on behalf of the student for whatever reason, you would have that ability to do so with the power of attorney. Otherwise, you're going to have to go through the student. Estate, trust, and other beneficiary transactions, probably outside of the scope of this. Claims and litigation, you know, if something happens and maybe your son or daughter is injured at school, you would be able to act on their behalf. So that's kind of important. You know, it would be sad if it happened, but it's important to have this power. Personal and family maintenance, that's really important, is to make decisions for somebody. So again, this is probably, I'm not sure where checking in with the registrar's office to get a copy of your kid's grades are if you suspect something is up. I'm not sure where that would fit in here. And you can also give special instructions. You can say, I give permission to talk to the UC Regents and the, you know, UC Santa Cruz registrar's office. You know, you can put whatever you want in there. And that's a place where you can add some special notes. Benefits and retirement plan tax matters. Okay, like filing a tax return would potentially be a situation. Dawn asks, we are living in California and have a student in Idaho, out of state. Would all these powers of attorney options apply? Yes. So this is a, Dawn, that's a great question. So this is a uniform statutory form power of attorney for California. I would recommend you do one in California, and there is one in Idaho. And if you Google uniform statutory form power of attorney, Idaho, it's probably going to look a lot like this one, because states in the Western United States typically follow California's lead. So that's something that, you know, the short answer is there is a document out there. It's something you can go online and find as well. But, you know, could you just use the California one? Yeah. Does Idaho have to, respect it? You know, I'm not sure, but they probably would. I mean, and I hate to sound vague and cagey on this, but, you know, Idaho is a state of, I think, 1.75 million people. If you have come in with a California power of attorney, they're probably going to honor it because they probably see a lot of California powers of attorney. So, all right, next slide is the next page. So this is a 2-page document. There's not a lot going on here, folks. And then this is where people get tripped up a little bit. And what I'll do is I'll show you here this one. A lot of people don't understand what this means. So remember, we named Harold and Wanda, right? And says, if I've designated more than one agent, if these agents are to act jointly or independently, those are really your two choices. Together might be another word. Separately, severally would be a really lawyerly way to say it. But I think independently is probably the clearest way to do it. And then what you have here is you also have your, when it's dated, and we're happy this webinar is occurring on August 4th. So I put today's date. And then all the things that are not in cursive right here, whoops. All of this, oh, hold on. Oops. All of this here that's printed and not in this cursive where it says your signature, Samuel Jones, this is the signature portion. That's what Sam would be signing. The rest of this here is something that you would handwrite in, or you would print, right? And then it has to be acknowledged before a notary public. So you take that down to mailboxes, et cetera, or you know, the UPS store or whatever it is, and get that thing notarized. Let's see here. I answered Dunn's question. Okay, so that is the durable power of attorney. Now, each state has their own durable power of attorney. The one really nice thing about the uniform statutory form power of attorney, the one really nice thing is that if it is not honored, then a court shall award attorney's fees if this is not honored. So if you use an attorney drafted power of attorney, that is not the case. But for the uniform statutory form power of attorney, it is. Let's turn to the Advanced Healthcare Directive. I think this is probably the most important document because if your kid, something happens and they get sick, and here's what, as we know, I mean, think back for those of you who went to college, you can get sick a lot. You know, you're out there, you're, you know, burning the candle at both ends. You're having a good time. You're studying. You're very active. A lot of people can get worn down. A lot of people get whatever kind of illness, and these can be fairly serious illnesses. Also, the other thing too is, sometimes people have evidence mental illness around this age. So it's for those of you who might have a child that is mentally disabled, right? Then a lot of times that happens right around this age. So I think this is a really important document. Remember, if you don't have this document, you cannot access your child's medical records. No one's going to talk to you. Okay. So it's really important to think about getting this done. This is the California Advanced Healthcare Directive. This has a bunch of instructions on there. Okay. This is the form. Again, these are forms that are published or that are created by the California State Legislature. And this one kind of walks you through what the form says. So it talks about consenting or refusing medical treatment. It talks about selecting healthcare providers and institutions, approving or disapproving of diagnostic tests, directing the withholding or the withdrawal of artificial nutrition or hydration, which is like a feeding tube, whether you put the feeding tube in or take it out, and then whether you want to donate organs and designating a primary physician. So this form is, let's see here, we have a question. Arch asks, is it accurate that a parent will not or cannot be held liable for their adult child's auto accident if the car is registered in the adult child's name? Does it matter if the accident occurs at school, out of state? Is the parent typically held liable if the car is in the parent's name? Yeah, Arch, the issue there is if your child, there's a lot of ifs in there. Generally speaking, the answer is yes. If you don't own the car and your child owns the car and they're not on your insurance policy and they've got their own insurance policy and yes, generally speaking, you're not responsible for their actions. Now, if your name is on the car, you have the issue of negligent entrustment. Negligent entrustment is you knew they were a terrible driver and they habitually drank and drove and you let them use the car anyway. Yes, you have some liability attaching. I would say that if you don't own the car and the kid's away at school and gets in a car accident, it's pretty tenuous that you're going to be responsible. So I won't say categorically, no, you're 100% safe, because lawyers actually can't say that there's no possible way you would be held liable. But generally speaking, yes. So Harold, we've got Harold here. This is where this is confusing. Okay. This is why I filled these out, because Sam's name does not appear until like page 6. Okay. We're way down the road of having Sam's name. So it doesn't say I, comma, and write your name like the power of attorney, right? The power of attorney, remember, it said I, Samuel Jones, appoint, blah, blah, blah. This one says I, without saying who the person is, designate Harold Jones. Okay. And the address and the phone number, super, super important, super important. Put the phone number. If something happens in the middle of the night, you need the physical street address, not a PO box, because if something happens to your kid at 2 a.m, your local sheriff's department is probably going to show up and knock on your door. I mean, no one wants those visits from law enforcement. Also, your phone number. The first thing that'll happen is they'll call the phone, and then we've also designated Wanda, so Sam's mother, and then there's an option for a third. So if Sam wanted to name his sister or his brother or his aunt or uncle, you could have a third person in there. And then the agent's authority is very broad, and it can be limited. Here, I chose not to limit it. And a lot of this, quite frankly, as you'll see, is not filled out because these are optional provisions. But where it says optional, and you can see here where it says optional, it means you can leave it blank, right? So, and here it's not optional, but it says except as I state here. So this would be limiting your ability to make healthcare decisions. And this is kind of important. This one on the very bottom is when this becomes effective. If you want to have access to medical records, and we'll cover the HIPAA authorization, if you want to have access to medical records while your child is mentally competent to make medical decisions, you want to check that box. So I would say in most cases, you're going to want to check that box. Now, if you said, look, I don't need to make any decisions, I only need to have access to medical information or need to make decisions if my son or daughter is, unconscious, right? Or unable to make decisions, then you would not check that. Most people go ahead and check that. So I would say, and I'm not giving you advice here. I'm just I'm trying to help you out here. and give you what I see most people doing. Not that that means that's how it should be in your case. And that's something, part of this is if you need help with this, if you're like, oh my God, I don't understand any of this stuff. Like this is just Chinese to me or Greek or whatever it is. I need some help with this. Certainly reach out to our firm. We can help you with this. And it just depends on what we're doing. So we would talk about the scope of the representation. But if you have a child who does have some health issues, you're definitely going to want to have this filled out and probably check that box, right? And this one, you can nominate a conservator. A conservator is a person, that never regains consciousness or is kind of out of it. In California, we use the term conservator. In other states, they use the term guardianship. And post-death authority, so authority to deal with the remains. And so now we'll get to the healthcare. This is a really important one, this end-of-life decision-making. This is nothing you want to think about for yourself, much less your kids. But here, now, the end-of-life decision-making, I've checked A. This is what most people check. Now, most of our clients are older. They're not college-age kids, right? Because they're mostly older people. Most people say, look, if I'm a goner, pull the plug. That's what A says. B says, keep me going as long as possible. Now, I think for a young person, you could make the case for checking B, right? Because they're young, they've got this long life. Someone who's maybe 80, 90, or 100, they might check A. Hey, if they're 60, they might check A, right? I mean, if you're sick for 3 or 4 days, you might think, if I was like this every day for the rest of my life, I just would not want to keep doing that. But again, this is probably one of could be the most important box to check here. Hopefully you won't have to deal with this with the kid, but it could be very important. And then you have other wishes as well. Donation of organs and tissues. In California, we have that on your driver's license. They used to have a little sticker on the driver's license. Now it's printed, that little dot. And I happen to have checked here in preparing this, yes. So donation of organs. So especially for a younger person, now you may have a religious a belief that precludes organ donation. And if you do, then you would not check that box, right? So that's an optional box. And then you have the ability to designate a primary physician. In this case, we didn't designate a primary physician. Again, this is optional. You don't have to designate that primary physician. And then we have the signature, and this is where Sam's name appears. You will see here that Samuel Jones appears here, and then he would be signing here and dating here. You can pre-print these on a PDF. You can write them in, use pen, obviously not pencil. It doesn't really matter. These are forms, and these are not lawyers who are looking at these forms. Like, these are medical professionals. So we tend to recommend that people use this form because it's what medical professionals are used to looking at. I will say if you're a Kaiser patient, you will use the Kaiser Advanced Healthcare Directive because they have their own. It's about 20 pages long. Southern California has a different Kaiser form than Northern California. I have no idea why. And if you work at Kaiser and you know why, please put that in the notes. But I don't know why one is different than the other. It's always been a mystery to me that Northern California is, maybe it's a Giants Dodgers thing. I don't know. And then these documents, unlike the durable power of attorney for property, the durable power of attorney for property management and personal affairs, remember, this is the Advanced Healthcare Directive. This document is witnessed. So here you want to make sure that the witnesses aren't Sam. You can't witness your own signature, and they're not mom and dad. Okay. So it's got to be, maybe pick the neighbors or something. Maybe the neighbors can serve as a witness if you're doing this at home before you go to college. And then this is if you are a resident in a skilled nursing facility. Again, if you're a college student or a young adult, probably not a resident in a skilled nursing facility, so this remains blank. You can acknowledge it. I did mention you have a witness. You can either witness it or acknowledge it before a notary public, either or. So if you can't scrape together 2 witnesses, you can trot down to the UPS store and get that notarized. All right, I'm going to take a couple of questions here. Then we have the HIPAA authorization. This is a 1-pager. It's not too much of a big deal. Diane says, if my adult child is hospitalized and unable to make medical decisions for himself, does the decision make automatically default to the parent, or would I only be able to make decisions on their behalf if I have this advanced healthcare directive? Diane, in the real world, they're going to ask the parents, what do you want to do? If there is no advanced directive, they're going to ask the people I mean, if you want to know the truth, they're going to ask the people who can sue the hospital if the hospital does something that causes injury or loss to the patient or the patient's family. So that's the real answer. So it's kind of grim, but they are going to obviously listen to the parents, right? It's no different than if a couple is in a car accident, a married couple, and one spouse is injured and the other one's not. There's no advanced directive. They're going to listen to the spouse. The reason this is important is you may need to access medical records and your child is not in the hospital, right? Let's say they're just not in the hospital. They're, I don't know, they're in Tahoe for the weekend and you need to access medical records. You're not going to be able to access that without this document. Diane also asks, is there a different healthcare directive for different states if my child lives in another state? Yes, there is. And there are, I have not researched all 50 states. I am assuming all 50 states have these forms. Okay. And a lot of this is available online. It's either available online through, on a public basis. I pulled the durable power of attorney is on the LA County's website, and that's the state form. The advanced healthcare directive comes from the California Department of Healthcare Services. This HIPAA authorization comes from the American Bar Association. And then the statutory will is something that the legislature enacted, and that's actually in the probate code. So all of these are publicly available. Now, if you go to a really small state, I mentioned Idaho has a population of 1.75 million. I don't know that they have these. They probably do, but that's something where, you could certainly call the school and ask them, and they might be able to help you, or just do a good Google search. Is this also different if you have an out-of-state student? I mean, the short answer is yes. If out-of-state, yes, because these are all state-specific. This is actually a federal form. So I think this is probably the only federal form we have here. This is from the American Bar Association, and this is a federal rule. California has its own HIPAA authorization, but this is the federal one. And this says that Sam can say which people have access to his health records. This is not decision-making. This is just disclosure of medical conditions to help people, people who need disclosure of medical conditions, maybe a successor trustee on a living trust. So if you're watching this and you will have, it's my kids, but is my stuff updated? If you have a living trust and your trustee and your trust says, if you become incapacitated, your trustee serves as your successor trustee, you might want to have that trustee be on your HIPAA authorization so that they have access to medical records, so that successor trustee can access the medical records to prove that you're incapacitated. Otherwise, they don't have access to the records. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg conundrum thing. But this one here for the college student, the college student, Sam in this case, would name his parents. I name Harold and Wanda, and they're my parents. And here's their contact information, their address, their cell phone, their email, whatever it is. And, disclose health records, but don't disclose. And there's a carve out here. If you look here in the middle of the page where you see A and B, B says disclose my health records, but not mental health records. The kid may not want to let his parents know or her parents know about mental health issues. Another one is communicable diseases. This would be like sexually transmitted diseases. Sometimes kids want to, for obvious reasons, want to keep that from their parents, or alcohol or drug use. So there's a carve out here where you can say that these things are not disclosed, and then you can specify an electronic or hard copy. And I would check probably the electronic because that's how the world is now. And then you go ahead and sign it, and you have a provision there on how long it's good for, sort of the duration, and that is the HIPAA authorization. So we're going to cover now the statutory will, and this is the last document we'll be covering. The statutory will, I am not a fan of, I will just say I'm not a fan of the statutory will. I think it's very confusing for normal people. What I mean by that is people who aren't lawyers, those are normal people. Lawyers are not normal people, right? I think this is very, very confusing. I do not like the format. And as we go through this, you're going to see, I think in some respects, it depends on the situation. This may be the least important because thinking about your own child dying is so just catastrophic. Just a heads up, if your child has no children, the child's parents or surviving parent inherit the assets, that may be a real issue. Think about that, whatever assets they may have. And you may think, well, my kid doesn't have any assets. Well, they might, because if they get in a car accident and they're injured, there might be a personal injury claim, right? Or if they're a pedestrian and they're injured. So there could be a significant amount of money. That issue of who inherits when you die, if you don't have children, it's both parents. That child may only want one parent to inherit. And in that case, this would be potentially a good thing to have. Again, very catastrophic, thinking about losing a child, but let's get to it. So there are a lot of questions here, and I'll let you read those on your own, and then the instructions. So I'm going to walk you through this. And this is our example here is Sam. And what Sam is doing is he's leaving everything to his kids. So remember, this is like the durable power of attorney. The first thing you fill out is Sam's name. Remember the Advanced Healthcare Directive, the first thing you filled out was like who the agents were. So on this one, Sam, and you print, don't pre-print on a PDF. You print this out with a pen and you print Samuel Jones. That is printed. It says this is Sam's will. Specific gift of personal residence. What is a specific gift? A specific gift is something other than who gets everything else. That's called the residue, what's left over. So a specific gift, Sam has the opportunity to say, I'm going to leave my entire house or my house, which he doesn't have a house, right? The kid's 18. I'm going to leave it to so-and-so. So we've left this blank. Okay. So in this case, we're leaving it blank. And then the next one down, paragraph 3, talks about specific gift of automobiles. And, this is one where Sam may want to, Sam very well may want to may want to give his car to his brother. Who knows? He bought that car and he's got the payment. Maybe the payments are, the amount that's owed is worth more than the car. So maybe Sam can give his car. But in here, we did choose to leave this blank. And so you can see the only thing we filled out in this case is the very first page. Now, the next page is also blank because this is a continuation of the first page, which is who gets my car. The next one's specific gifts of cash. Sam doesn't have any money. He's got like $15 in his bank account, right? But still orders Uber Eats, DoorDash. That's what they do. Specific gifts of cash. So that's left blank. And then balance of my assets, number 5. That is what is called the residue. Lawyers call that residue, the balance of my estate. This is why you see why it's confusing? There are all these boxes. I don't know why they had to make it so confusing. In this case, we go all the way down to choice 4, or 5D, which is choice 4, Harold and Wanda. Equally among Harold and Wanda. Now, if you wanted to leave, let's say Sam didn't like his dad. He wants to leave everything to Wanda. You wouldn't put Harold in there. You just put Wanda. But actually, you would use choice C here, 5C, and you would just put Wanda's name in there, right? So if Sam just wanted to leave it to Wanda, he would put it to Wanda. And then we have to have every will needs an executor. Okay. These things don't execute, not in the sense of kill, but execute in terms of carry out the terms of the will. They don't do it on their own. You got to appoint a human being, a human being who's alive with a heartbeat and who's going to do all this stuff. So in this case, Sam appoints Harold and then Wanda as successor trustee and signs the bottom, meaning no bond, but that is not signing the will. That's just saying if Harold serves as Sam's executor, there is no bond required. What is a bond? If the estate's $100,000, a court may order that a bond of $100,000 be obtained. There's a premium on that. It's like an insurance policy. So if Harold steals all the money, the bonding company replaces the $100,000 and then goes after Harold to get the money back. So it's not until this page that we're on, which is coming on to the last page, that Sam signs. And again, it's printed. You're going to print this in ink, August 4th, 2022 at Los Angeles, signed Samuel Jones. And then we get Nancy and Ned, the neighbors, to sign as witnesses. So again, like the Advanced Healthcare Directive, you're not going to have the parents signing as the witness. Sam cannot witness his own will. And so he signs in that box. And I think you can see this is not, this, is clear as mud. Okay. I really don't like this form, but this is the statutory form that California does use. And if you are totally overwhelmed by all of this, if you're thinking, what in the world is going on? Like, this is a lot of stuff. It's a lot of boxes to fill out. If you're nervous, you may not sign the right box or check the wrong box. Do you just want to get it done? Then get your A team together, right? And so, not this A team. There's me. I'm in the A team, and I do have my book, Savvy Estate Planning, which you can get from our website, and we do cover a lot of these issues. Certainly, the powers of attorney and wills, more in the format of a trust. But you can get your A team together, and we can assist. Our firm can assist, and we're doing this really because I have kids that I put through college, and if you have kids going to college, it is so expensive. You've got so much money flying out the door. We're trying to help our friends and our clients navigate a lot of the legal issues related to going to college. So you can do it yourself or not. And if you want to have us handle it, just reach out to us, and we quote fees on an individual basis. And it's very hard. And I was really struggling with this, putting this slide deck together. I just think it's too variable. And if you say, Jim, I know I just need to get this done, just make it happen. We'll take care of you. But again, if you want to do it on your own, you can certainly take this and do with it what you will. Again, this is not legal advice. We're just kind of going through how to fill these out, how to fill out these statutory forms, if you will, right? These state. Dawn asks, can a sibling be a witness? Dawn, that's a really good question. A sibling, I would say generally no, it's not a good idea. If a sibling is a beneficiary of a will, that would be an interested party. And then there's also this issue of being, the Internal Revenue Code has Internal Revenue Code 672C, which talks about people who are not related to the party, and siblings are related. Nieces and nephews aren't. Parents, children, grandchildren, grandparents are considered people who are related. So I would say I'd get somebody else other than a sister, just to be on the safe side. And that brings us to the end. And this is how you get my book, Savvy Estate Planning. And we cover powers of attorney, and we cover disposition of estate, and all the stuff you need to think about, and help you formulate, what should I look for in an executor? What should I look for in someone to be to make healthcare decisions for me, or to be an agent under a durable power of attorney? So that's all covered in the book. I would really encourage you, if you're watching this on YouTube, you've already landed on YouTube, go to our YouTube page. This is a great resource. When COVID started, I had a microphone and I just said, I've got all this knowledge in my brain. I'm just going to share it with the world. And the feedback I'm getting is really a validation that we live in a different era. And, the lawyers cannot hold on to this information anymore. It's out there. And so I'm taking everything, my, over 25 years of experience in this field, and sharing it with people in a way, hopefully that you can understand. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this live, go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. The reason is we have a lot of good content that comes out. And if you can't make the webinar, and you can sign up for our webinar, this is how you sign up for a webinar. You go to our webpage. But if you can't make the webinars, please watch the YouTube videos, because this is really high value content. And we're going to talk about tax planning next week. We're also going to talk about tax tips for 2022. And as we're speaking, a new tax bill is passed. The Senate, whether it's going to make it through, we don't know what's going to happen. So very, very important to pay attention. Correction, it is not, I don't believe it has passed the Senate. It was the NATO thing. Anyway, this is how you schedule a free call. You go ahead and click that button, and it'll walk you through how to schedule that call. And if you really enjoy our webinars, or like working with us, please give us a positive review on Google. That is very helpful. And we will open it up for any last questions. And we do have a question. Oh, Linda says, oh, well, thank you. Your webinars are fabulous, in all caps. Thank you. Couldn't be more grateful to you and your firm for taking the time. Linda, thank you so much. This takes up a fair amount of my week. I will say, preparing for these, but I always get fired up, and I always love it when people share their appreciation. So Linda, if you wouldn't mind just going and doing a Google review for our firm, that would be fantastic. So, and then remember, oh, thank you, Linda. And then we have our next webinar coming up. So really, this is one not to miss, because in preparing for this with Christina Lindsay, we're going to go through a lot of ways to save taxes, just kind of shuffling the deck on your investments and paying attention. And a lot of this, I'm a tax lawyer. I think if I weren't a tax lawyer, I would probably be paying a lot more in income tax, but this is like what I'm living and breathing on a daily basis. And this is not gaming, it's not like you're cheating the system or anything. This is just basic tax hygiene. This is up there with washing your hands before you eat. You're going to be healthier. It's just basic stuff. So I think it's basic stuff. I think you'll learn a lot, but I would really appreciate it if you joined us. So any further questions? If we have no questions, we'll wrap it up in the last few minutes here together. But go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page, and you'll be in the loop. Well, thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again.